Thanks. I just wanted to ask first about her report. President, a few weeks ago now, was pretty indignant and saying the special counsel inappropriately raised the death of his son in the interview. The transcript as it's come out, it seems there's a little more space in there for that. Does the president regret the outward anger that he displayed towards the special counsel about that?
So just a couple things. My colleague addressed earlier the transcript, so certainly would refer you to him, and that's my colleague at the White House counsel's office. As it relates to, I know some of you want to ask about the hearing that's currently going on. It was going on when I walked out here. My colleague at the White House counsel's office is planning to take questions. He's going to gaggle right after the hearing wraps up today. So I know that he is going to continue to be responsive, so he will be able to take your questions. But we want to wait till the hearing is completed, and once that's wrapped up, he'll be right at the sticks doing a gaggle. I believe at the sticks, maybe not, but he is going to do a gaggle.
Is the president monitoring the hearing?
The president is obviously meeting, as he does every day, meet with his senior advisors, senior staff. Is preparing for tomorrow's trip. As you know, he's going to be going to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I cannot speak to what the president is keeping track of or watching. Obviously, he'll get updates on it or get updates himself as the day goes by, but he's focused on the American people and tomorrow's trip, obviously.
And if I could ask you something unrelated, annual inflation ticked up to 3.2% in February. How concerned is the White House, given that the president has been saying that Federal Reserve should be cutting rates because of lower inflation?
So a couple of things. So let me just answer your first question first, which is, look, the president in the State of the Union was very clear. We have more work to do to lower costs for hardworking families, and so that is something that we're going to do. Obviously, also middle class, and that work continues. But just a couple of things, as you know, we've talked about this, and I think it's important to note this. Inflation is down 2/3, and we have the lowest annual core inflation since May 2021. Prices fell over the last year for gas, milk, eggs, chicken, appliances, and also used cars. Wages are rising faster than prices over the last year since the pandemic, and forecasts broadly expect progress on inflation to continue over the rest of the year. And so that is important to note. And like I said, there's more work to do. We're going to continue to take on big pharma to lower prescription drugs and healthcare costs. We're going to crack down on price gouging. You hear talk about junk fees. The president talked about that last week. And so also lowering housing costs, which is something that the president obviously spoke about very recently. Look, I also want to, as you asked me about the second question, the Federal Reserve, I just want to be really clear. Unlike previous presidents, the president does very much believe on the importance of the Fed being independent. And as you are asking me a specific thing that the president said last week, he was simply commenting on a widely accepted market view, that he was not saying what the federal policy should be, but it was regarding the interest rates, obviously a widely market view. So I just want to be super, super mindful because we do very much respect the independence of the Fed.
Thanks, Karine. What's been the president's reaction so far to the Robert Hur testimony?
I don't have anything to share on that. Like I said, my colleague from the White House counsel is going to do a gaggle once the hearing wraps up. I'm not going to speak to the president's reaction.
And the president has said that he would sign into law the bill that could have TikTok banned. If the president is so concerned about the national security risks around TikTok, why is he posting on the platform?
So I'll say this. Jake Sullivan, our national security advisor, just spoke to the more broadly why this bill is important, why we welcome this bill. Obviously, it's going to the process, and we're offering technical support. So I'll just leave that piece there. As it relates to the campaign, I would have to, and their strategy as it relates to TikTok, I'm just going to leave it to them.
So there are a lot of people and businesses that rely on TikTok for their financial livelihood. What is the White House's message to those folks if TikTok were to be banned, which is a possibility?
Our national security advisor laid out in a very, very clear terms why this bill is important about ownership, if it's about ownership here in this country or elsewhere, in particular China, right? He spoke about that. Where do we want that ownership? Where do we want that data of Americans to be? Here or in China. Like, that is basically what the National Security Advisor laid out. And so that is the underlying, the importance of that bill. It's a bipartisan bill. It is something that we welcome. We're obviously, again, going to offer technical support. I'm just not going to add anything more to that, but it is an important bill that we welcome here at the White House. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. The president said yesterday that he had no plans to address the Israeli parliament at this moment. Does that indicate that it's something that he or the White House is planning for in the future?
He also said that he wasn't going to speak to conversations about that particular question that he was getting about a meeting. I don't have anything else to share, obviously, and Jake Sullivan said this himself. He is in constant communication with his Israeli counterparts, NSC, the State Department. They are in constant communication, so I just don't have anything else to share beyond that, beyond what Jake shared. Okay.
Does the White House ever digitally alter photos of the president, vice president, first lady, secretary before they're released?
Digitally altered? Not that I know of. I would say no. Why would we digitally alter photos? Are you talking about? Are you comparing us to what's going on in the UK?
I'm doing due diligence to ensure that the leader of another country wouldn't alter photos.
Why does
of
the
themselves
monarch have to
before.
do anything with us? No, that is not something that we do here.
Okay. That's why I asked. Why isn't he taking questions today alongside the two Polish leaders?
You know what? And I've said this before. If you're asking about a 2+2, or in this case, I don't know what we call it, a 3+, 1+2. I don't know. But I think it is. I think I see your. But I think it's look. I actually think it's important that we have the two leaders of Poland here. I think it shows unity, and I think that's important to show. And also, obviously, it's a part of the meeting is celebrating the 25 years of Poland being part of NATO. And you heard Jake lay out the importance of this meeting, especially as it relates to Ukraine and other important agenda items that both the U.S. and Poland are engaging on. Obviously, you'll see them shortly. But look, every meeting is different. Every engagement that we have with foreign leaders are different. This one does not have a, let's just call it a 2+2. I'm not sure what else to call it right this time off the top of my head. But you'll hear from all the leaders today when we have the bilateral.
So no desire to perhaps celebrate their unity and raise solidarity or concerns about press freedoms in Poland and having them take questions today.
As you know,
Country that celebrates press freedom.
as you know, as you just stated in your last part of your question to me, press freedom is something that's important. That's why we exercise in this back and forth that we do almost every day. It is important to have that. The press is going to have a moment to see the leaders, and I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, Karine. The president said yesterday that he was hoping executive action on the border would happen by itself, that Congress would legislate it. Can you just confirm for us that this indicates that he's no longer considering executive action on the border?
Well, the president has been very clear, and I've been very clear. Anytime I've asked about executive actions here, the bottom line is, in order to actually have change, extensive change, real change, comprehensive change, that Senate bill that was negotiated between Republicans and obviously Democrats in the Senate would have been the best way to go. It would have been the toughest, fairest piece of legislation, law, if you will, if it had been moved and the president was able to sign it into law. And that's what's important. The president is trying to make it very clear: no executive action would have that effect, the effect that this bipartisan negotiation would have had. And he's going to be optimistic. He wants to see it moved. And let's not forget the reason why it was stopped, the reason that it didn't go forward, is because Republicans were told in Congress to reject it by the former president. That's what happened. They chose politics instead of a majority of the American people. I do want to lay out here a couple of things. It would have meant more resources to secure the border, Border Patrol agents, immigration judges, asylum officers, and law enforcement personnel to combat fentanyl. That's what would have been. That is what's in that bipartisan negotiation, and so much more. And they rejected it. Republicans rejected it because of politics. But the president stands behind the majority of Americans who want to see change happen at the border, who wants to see our immigration system that's been broken for decades fixed.
I understand his preference to legislate, but the reason I'm asking is we've had conflicting answers over the span of a few weeks on
I don't think
whether,
we've had conflicting
from the
answers.
president,
No,
on
we
whether
haven't.
executive action was something he could
We
do.
haven't.
He first said that he had done everything he could with the stroke of a pen. Then he said that there was more he could do, but that you would prefer that Congress legislate this, and things were under consideration potentially for executive orders that would make changes to the border who could come across.
so-
And then yesterday, it seemed like he said no, nothing's
so
happening.
I disagree. I think there are a couple of parts here. You're asking me if there's executive actions that we can take, and what we're saying is there are no executive actions that would have done the work or would have actually been able to deal with the issue that's happening at the border and starting to really fix the immigration system than the bipartisan bill that came out of the Senate, negotiation that came out of the Senate. And we are saying that that's the best way to go. We are always looking at options. We have said this. We're always looking at options, executive actions, right, to see how to move forward. But we believe, fundamentally we believe, and it is proven by what is in that negotiation, that the way to move forward is to actually move forward with what could have been the toughest, fairest law that we've had in some time. So we're continuing to call for that. We always say,
So executive action
we always-
aren't off the table?
we always say that.
I understand what you're saying about the bill. I do.
I-
But yes or no
But
is...
you're not, what I'm saying to you is that we always look at all our options. That's what I'm saying to you. But we are saying also is the only way to move forward, to actually deal with this issue, the challenges that we're seeing, that Republicans rejected because of the last president, because of Donald Trump, is that negotiation bill, that bipartisan negotiation bill. That is the way to move forward here. Are we always looking at options? Yes, but we haven't made a decision on that. That's the bottom line. We have not made a decision on that, but we want to see this bipartisan Senate negotiation proposal move forward that Republicans are rejecting because of Donald Trump. They are putting politics ahead of what works for the American people, what the American people actually want to see.
Very quickly on a different subject, why was the president in that interview using the Gaza Ministry of Health, just run by Hamas, their numbers on the death toll in Gaza? There was a 30,000 figure that he cited on MSNBC. The last time he cited Hamas numbers, officials here dismissed it as a reference to publicly available data. But I would assume that the U.S. has its own assessment of what the death toll
We've been
is.
very clear here. There are public available data that you all also are taking a look at, that we are citing as well. That's what we're talking about. That's what the president.
Use that number too, then?
You could use whatever you want. I'm just saying that, but we have said, we've been really clear. There are publicly available data that showed, sadly, how many deaths that we have seen in Gaza. And the president has been very clear. There's too much. It's tragic. It's tragic what we're seeing. And the president's going to continue to speak to that. Go ahead, Gabe.
Karine, quickly on SB4, that law in Texas that would allow local police to arrest migrants. Today, the Supreme Court extended the order blocking that until at least next week. Is the administration coming up with any contingency plans if that were to be able to go into effect, or what's the latest on that from the White House's perspective?
So going to be super careful here and don't want to go beyond the Department of Justice. And so I'm just going to be super, super mindful. I don't have anything else beyond that. I don't have a contingency plan to announce at this time. So just want to be super mindful there.
Thanks, Karine. I wanted to first ask you about a Politico report that described a toxic culture, including verbal harassment by a former aide at the White House advance team. The story said that things had gotten so bad that the White House counsel's office had opened an investigation. Just wondering what you can tell us about that, and also whether the president was aware of any of these issues.
So a couple of things as to your question about investigations. Going to be really careful here. I'm not going to comment on a personnel matters one way or the other on the investigation part. On the top of your question, I'll say this. So the president is deeply proud of his advance team, its leadership, and Ryan Montoya, who is a stand-up dedicated group whose expertise, camaraderie, and professionalism have been critical to his 242 domestic and 31 international trips, flawlessly executing events in unprecedented environments, ranging from multiple active war zones outside of American control to a once-in-a-century pandemic. So he's grateful to everyone who has served and is serving on an unmatched team that represents the diversity of the country as they have fought every day to help him bring his message to the American people and to the entire world. I'll just leave it there for now. I'll just leave it there.
Can you say whether the president has been made aware of any?
The president is aware. I mean, I just laid out how the president feels about his team and everyone who's worked for him, everybody who's worked for him.
Okay. And I guess a follow-up to Ed's question, on a serious note, I mean, I'm just asking this seriously, I'm curious, does the president have any thoughts on the controversy surrounding Kate Middleton? Is it something that he's been following? Do you know if he is worried about her?
I think when we originally heard about her health situation, obviously we offer her a speedy recovery. I don't have anything else to add beyond that. We offer her a speedy recovery, and I'm just going to leave it there. I don't have anything else to share. I have not spoken to the president about this, but that's something that I can for surely say. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. Can you give a preview of the president's trip that he's taking this week to the Midwest, to Michigan and Wisconsin?
So I shared a preview at the top. This is part of the president's busy travel that he is obviously is undertaking as we just laid out his State of the Union. So it's not unusual. Presidents go out there after giving a successful speech, and he's going to talk directly to the American people. He's going to share how his administration investments are rebuilding our communities and creating good-paying jobs. And as you know, in the State of the Union, his policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, which creates tens of thousands of jobs here in America. Let's not forget the 46,000 projects that are ongoing that's coming out of the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. So he's very, very much looking forward to being out in Milwaukee, speaking directly to the American people, talking about his investment in America, how he's delivering on the needs that the Americans have, especially as we talk about an economy, building economy from the bottom up, middle out. I'll take one more. Go ahead, April. Go ahead.
It's related to that.
I just got pulled, so go ahead. I'm being pulled.
Marsha Fudge is leaving as HUD Secretary. The President really was excited and exuberant that she accepted his nomination to be HUD Secretary. What does he feel about her leaving in this moment?
So, as you know, we announced that the Secretary is going to be leaving at the end of the month, and it is going to spend some more time with her family. Obviously, the department could speak more to that. She has been tremendously important. Her work at HUD has been important as we talk about the president's economy, the president's housing policy. He just announced a couple days ago on how he's going to move forward to make sure that we deal with one of the issues that matter to the American people, right? Housing, lowering costs. What else can the federal government do to make that happen? And so, look. Her role has been instrumental. The president could not have been able to deliver in a way that he has on the economy without her. And the last 3 years, the ambitious housing agenda that we've been able to deliver, including that you've heard him talk about in the State of the Union, would not have been able to happen without her leadership. So we are sad to see her go, and we are very much appreciative of the work that she's done as secretary over the last 3 years.
Are you anticipating them to still continue to talk about issues of housing, economy? I mean, she goes beyond that because she was a former congressperson. Now that she's at the end of the month, she will no longer be HUD secretary. Do you believe that she will be a consultant, I guess, as the White House says, for those who are not cabinet members, a kitchen cabinet member now? Is she now falling into that?
So look, I can't speak to what she's going to be doing next. I can't speak to that. She would have to speak to herself. Obviously, for herself. Obviously, her advice, her leadership has been incredibly important to the president. Will that continue? potentially, possibly. They have a relationship, obviously, and so I just don't have anything to share about what it's going to look like next for her. But she is leaving to spend more time with her family. As you know, those types of decisions are incredibly personal and difficult to make. I'm sure that was not easy for her to make that decision, but we have been truly honored to have her part of this team for the last 3 years. We've had a ambitious housing agenda that she has led and has made Americans' lives just a little bit better. And so obviously there's more work to be done, as the President stated in his State of the Union just last week. And so we are very much have complete confidence in the leadership at HUD to continue those efforts. Thanks, everybody.